Hey everybody, Tony D and Little Joan here with a hot take. And this image here is from Awakening with JP. It's one of the channels I subscribe to. He does funny sort of political sketches where he basically plays all the parts. It's pretty good channel. Check it out. Anyhow, this sketch and that screaming reminded me of what's to come if Trump does successfully pull all this off. And it's looking better day by day, making progress. No real major setbacks as of yet. He hasn't hit a roadblock yet that seems like, oh God, this is gonna make it impossible. This all seems pretty straightforward so far. So let's imagine for a moment that he's successful, right? What's going to happen? Well, the first thing that's going to happen is every major media outlet will scream coup. Trump has stolen the election. He's committed a coup, even though that's not really what a coup is. And, there's going to be talk of sedition. Not sedition, but seceding from the Union. As there was an exercise a bunch of the Clintonites did, an attempt to kind of do a post-election, what are we going to do if Trump wins sort of scenario. And in that exercise, John Podesta played Trump. And anyhow, long story short, at the end of it, California, Washington, and Oregon tried to secede from the Union. Now, understand that everybody in that exercise, they were all Democrats, all neoliberals who, they don't even really consider the idea that Trump could just be president and you'll just wait 4 years. They're all hyped up. I think they're not serious about it. I think they specifically did that exercise to specifically have that outcome to threaten Republicans. That's what their modus operandi is, I think. They have a lot of threats. Okay, if you go through this, you're going to be in big trouble. You're going to be in big trouble. Oh, we're gonna protest and we're going to do stuff. And, oh, you're not going to like it. It's going to be bad. It's going to be real, real bad. And then you do it, and it's just like nothing. They don't actually do anything. Then they just complain about something else. So I think most of it will be media-driven hate towards Trump. And part of the strategy, I think, behind that is they're hoping that some of the whack jobs who are on the left, and there's quite a few of them, one or two of them will snap and do something crazy, actually something violent. I think a lot of the members of Antifa fall into this category. I don't think they're directly pushing Antifa, although I think they're through various intermediaries, money trickles down to them. And they don't need a lot of money to operate anyway, but these are the people they want to egg on into doing something crazy, to commit acts of violence, to intimidate people. I mean, if you look at what just happened recently, the woman who runs or she's in charge of the money for the transition, right? So if Biden does win officially, they give him money to transition his team into the White House, and she's in charge of that money. But she's not supposed to release it until the election's over. Now, in a normal sort of election, that wasn't close or contested, you would have that handover almost immediately because someone would concede the election, and there would be no reason to hold it up. This time, of course, there's all kinds of reasons to hold it up, and she was threatened, harassed, and bullied. So Trump basically said, yeah, no, it's no problem. Go ahead and release the money. Because of that one act alone, I'm really, really hoping Trump pulls this off just so he could ask Biden for that money back, just so he could go after the Biden campaign for that money. I don't care if they spent like $2. I would love to see them go after the Biden campaign just to get it back. And it would be great. It would be great to make them pay that money back. They'd probably refuse to do it. And I would love to see Trump take him to court over nothing. I don't care if it cost thousands of dollars to take them to court just to get those $2 back. I would love to see him do it. Would love to see him waste that money and force those people to pay for their arrogance. And then I would like to see him double down and make them pay for the court costs. But we'll see. We'll see. In terms of what else is going to happen, I think you can expect initially a lot of protest, people, again, doing crazy things. So it depends on where you live. Certainly if you're out west, where a lot of this stuff has already been happening, is still happening, watch yourself. Watch yourself. You probably already are, but be real careful about your security. Lock your car, lock your doors, be aware of your surroundings at all times, especially when you're not at home. Don't turn your back on these people for a second if you run into Antifa or BLM or even just people who are kind of, sympathetic to these groups, because I think this will push a lot of people over the edge. I really do. I think we have to be prepared for the cities to burn again, which, if Trump wins, that's not going to be a big deal. Because I don't think Trump's giving them the money to repair these cities. He shouldn't have to. These cities have a police force. They have a fire department. What the hell are they using them for? Normal cities, they put down these sort of things and make sure it doesn't happen. We haven't had these problems in New Jersey, except one time in Atlantic City. That was the only time we got basically a riot. They broke into stores, but the damage compared to the other cities was relatively minimal. I think if you deploy your police force and you make sure that they clear the streets when a riot is imminent, for the most part, I think you can keep the destruction very, very low. People have to be very committed to looting and arson in order to brave tear gas and a lot of cops. I mean, is Antifa committed? Some of them are, but a lot of them are just participating because they're collectivists. They're in a group, they get caught up in the hive mind and they go. But when you put up a resistance, when you put up a real fight, you start arresting people, they break. Their ranks break, and they tend to start falling apart. And yes, they will, spread around the city and go and commit little acts here and there, but, you don't want a situation like we had in Portland where they're attacking a courthouse or some institution. You want to keep these people, you want to make it known to these groups that it won't be tolerated ever. And they don't have the stamina to keep going back again and again and again. If you have a proper local government willing to arrest them, willing to prosecute them. Now, Portland doesn't have that right now. They keep cutting people loose. That's going to change, Antifa, so enjoy it while it lasts. It's very interesting that a lot of your activity has slowed down to a good degree. I guess you really like Biden, huh? So, I don't think anybody believes that you hate Biden. But who knows? In the coming weeks, if Biden gets in, they'll certainly kick up their activity. But if Trump gets in, they're going to make a big show of it. But I don't think it's going to be that big of a deal. The siege to the White House was nothing. There were 2 nothings at the White House. I don't think they had the guts, because I think if you put up a strong defense, they back down. And in the case of particular states, if these Democratic governors still want to punish their own people, there's not much Trump can do about that. He can deputize local cops and state troopers and try to get it under control, but he can't solve the problem as long as you keep electing these morons. Don't elect them. Look at the county map in any state, and what you're going to see is a sea of red that surrounds a couple of blue sections. Those blue sections are the major cities. Those are the people who keep voting in Democrats. Or those are the people who are suffering under an incredibly corrupt voter fraud system, as it may turn out. So you need to turn out in droves and drive these Democrats out. The Democratic Party really needs to be punished. They have not learned their lesson at all. No, they have not. Even if Trump gets elected, that's not enough. It's not enough just to get Trump back in and have him, stomp around. We have to depower the Democratic Party until they understand what they've done was monumentally foolish and damaging to this country. And that's going to take nothing short of kicking them down to a minor party, kicking them down to give the Republicans the presidency, the Senate, and the House. Once you have that, and the country continues to function and possibly flourish under the GOP, the Democrats are going to lose more people, because people in Democratic states are finally going to start going, well, geez, we are suffering economically, and all our leaders do is ask for a handout. Maybe we should be like Florida or Texas or this state or that state. And then maybe you'll actually see some state legislatures slowly start to flip. I think that's where the Democrats are probably most vulnerable, if we targeted, say, state legislatures first and started flipping more of them. Because those state legislatures set the districts. They do the gerrymandering. And once you get a control of them, the other elected officials then tend to follow with your party, because you can gerrymander things in your favor. So, but I think we need to be prepared for an initial blast of absolute chaos, then followed by several years of more of the same, more screeching in the media, more resistance fighters as they get more and more desperate, trying to sabotage everything. And more things, woke nonsense that'll hopefully start to peter out. I think the next big goal in a second Trump administration would be education. Education. We've got to get him to seriously turn around the educational system before he leaves office. I think the next guy after Trump, you could probably get a guy like Pence in, which wouldn't be too bad. It wouldn't be Trump, but it wouldn't be too bad. He would probably follow a lot of the Trump model simply because it was popular and it worked for him. He wouldn't follow all of it, obviously, but you would want to get then another Republican. So Trump's gains by that time, there's no way they're going to overturn him. As long as you don't get a Republican in, it's just going to S the bed and ruin it all. And then maybe the Democrats by that time will finally get the message, and or not. I mean, it's the future of the Democratic Party looks pretty grim in my view. Even if they win this, there's going to be a major split in the party between the socialists and the neo-libs, and the socialists aren't going to go away. They're not going to go away. They didn't get their shot. And it's very easy for them to scream, see, we could have fixed everything. It's very easy for somebody to say that. It's part of Biden's strategy, right? He says, if we had good leadership, no one would have died from the beer virus. It's not true. It's easy to say. It's impossible to prove. How do you prove that Biden would have been better? There's no way to do that. You could travel to an alternate universe where Biden got to be president, but, short of that, there's no way to prove it. You can say it all day long, but it's just an opinion. And that's what these guys are rolling on. So, if Trump does pull this off, there's going to be a brief celebratory moment, but in that brief moment, don't let your guard down. Be aware and be careful, because, and God forbid Trump doesn't pull this off. There's going to be a lot of people who are like, oh, we're going to punish these Trump supporters. I wouldn't advise you to hide, but at the same time, I wouldn't advise you to advertise it either. Because if you get somebody at work who's going to be an anti-Trumper and it's still raving about it, and it's very likely that would happen, even if Biden wins, you just have to try to approach it like, hey, I don't know why you're talking politics at work. I didn't even bring it up. Because some of these people are really possessed, and it may take a while, although I think it's possible. It'll be hard, but it's possible that you can eventually get these TDS sufferers to sort of calm down and at least accept Trump did some good in the world. Because, if Biden does get in, they're going to be very, very either confused and angry because things are suddenly starting to go wrong, or they're going to yet again feed upon the media line, which will be something like, well, Trump did so much damage to the country, that's why Biden's having a bad time. That's why Biden had to send troops into the Middle East, because Trump, messed it all up. So expect that. But if Trump wins, that'll be an overall good. So fingers crossed, and tune in again tomorrow, because this information just keeps coming and coming and coming. Right, John?